Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, your ultimate backstage pass to Hollywood's hidden gems, lost classics, and unforgettable movie moments. Today, we're cranking back the VHS and diving into forgotten movies from the 1980s that still hold up in 2025, those underrated, overlooked, or cult favorite flicks that somehow got buried over time, yet remain just as thrilling, emotional, or entertaining as ever. Whether you're a die-hard 80s fan or discovering these cinematic treasures for the first time, you're in for a wild nostalgic ride. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, hit that subscribe button now and join our growing community of movie lovers who live for the forgotten, the bold, and the unforgettable. Which of these 80s classics is your favorite? Or did we miss a gem you think deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. We're reading every one. Let's rewind to the magic, and hit play. 1. To Live and Die in L.A., 1985. From the edge of the 80s, to the soul of 2025. Los Angeles, a city of sunlit highways, neon shadows, and secrets buried beneath concrete. In 1985, director William Friedkin, The Exorcist, The French Connection, turned his lens on this restless city and delivered something raw, something unforgettable, To Live and Die in L.A. At first glance, it looked like just another gritty cop thriller. But beneath the car chases and counterfeit bills was a haunting tale of obsession, betrayal, and moral decay. Secret Service agent Richard Chance was no clean-cut hero. He was reckless, dangerous, and desperate to avenge his partner's murder. And his target? A cold, calculating counterfeiter played chillingly by a young Willem Dafoe. With a pounding synth score by Wang Chung, this wasn't just a crime film, it was a cinematic fever dream. It dared to show law enforcement not as noble warriors, but as men slipping deeper into the darkness they swore to fight. The infamous freeway chase? Still studied in film schools. The twist ending? Still shocks first-time viewers. Yet somehow, the film slipped through time's cracks. Forgotten by the mainstream, overshadowed by bigger blockbusters. But in 2025, To Live and Die in L.A. is rediscovered, and it hits harder than ever. Because in a world where the line between right and wrong keeps blurring, Friedkin's L.A. still looks a little too familiar. 2. Manhunter, 1986. Forgotten but not gone. The Haunting Legacy of Manhunter, 1986. In a decade dominated by neon lights, big hair, and action blockbusters, Manhunter crept in quietly, like the killer it portrayed. Released in 1986 and largely ignored at the box office, this psychological thriller was overshadowed by louder films and flashier names. But here we are, nearly 4 decades later, and Manhunter still holds a razor-sharp edge. Directed by the visionary Michael Mann, Manhunter introduced us to a world of color-coded nightmares and quiet dread. It wasn't just a crime movie, it was an atmosphere. Cold blues, stark whites, and deep shadows weren't just stylistic choices, they were reflections of the mind of Will Graham, the tortured FBI profiler at its center. Long before Silence of the Lambs brought Hannibal Lecter into the mainstream, Manhunter gave us Brian Cox's chillingly understated Lecter, known here as Lecter. He wasn't the star of the show, but his presence haunted every frame, much like the killer Will was trying to catch. The film plays like a slow-burning fever dream. It's not about jump scares or blood splatter, it's about obsession. The fear of losing yourself while chasing darkness. And even in 2025, that fear still resonates. What makes Manhunter timeless is its commitment to mood, character, and style over formula. The synth-heavy score, the psychological depth, and Mann's meticulous direction create an experience that feels as modern as anything streaming today. In the sea of forgotten 80s thrillers, Manhunter remains an eerie, beautiful standout, one that didn't scream for your attention but still lingers in your mind long after the credits roll. 3. The Last Starfighter, 1984. The gamer who became a hero across the stars. In a sleepy trailer park beneath a desert sky, young Alex Rogan felt trapped. His dreams reached far beyond the dusty roads and broken-down cars that surrounded him. His only escape? A coin-operated arcade machine called Starfighter. Day after day, he mastered it, not knowing it was more than just a game. Then one night, a mysterious stranger named Centauri arrived in a sleek, alien car. With a handshake and a grin, he changed Alex's life forever. The game, it turned out, was a recruitment tool to find real star pilots, and Alex had just qualified to defend the galaxy. Thrust into an interstellar war against the evil Zur and the Kodan Armada, Alex faced the impossible. A reluctant hero, unsure if he was ready. But with nothing left on Earth to hold him back, he climbed aboard the Gunstar spacecraft, becoming the last hope of the Rylan Star League. What followed was a dazzling battle of lasers, loyalty, and legacy. Alex, the boy from nowhere, became a legend among the stars, not because he was chosen, but because he chose to fight. Why it still holds up in 2025. Even in an age of hyper-realistic graphics and sprawling cinematic universes, The Last Starfighter holds its magic. It was one of the first films to use CGI for space battles, and while charmingly dated, it still sparks wonder. But beyond the effects lies a timeless message. Even the most ordinary life can hide an extraordinary destiny. It's a story of purpose, courage, and belonging, one that speaks louder in today's world of virtual dreams and digital frontiers. 4. Streets of Fire, 1984. Streets of Fire, 1984, the rock and roll fable that refused to fade. In the gritty, neon-lit world of the 1980s, Streets of Fire burst onto the screen like a thunderclap, part rock opera, part retro noir, and all attitude. Set in a fictional cityscape where leather jackets never go out of style and motorcycles rule the streets, the film follows Tom Cody, a soldier for hire with a stoic stare and a score to settle. When his ex-girlfriend, now a famous rock singer named Ellen Aim, is kidnapped by a gang of biker punks led by the menacing Raven Shattuck, played by Willem Dafoe in vinyl overalls, no less, Tom returns to rescue her, and to face the ghosts he left behind. Directed by Walter Hill, the mastermind behind The Warriors, Streets of Fire was boldly marketed as a rock and roll fable, and that's exactly what it is. Fueled by epic anthems like Nowhere Fast and I Can Dream About You, the film struts between musical, action movie, and comic book with reckless style. It was loud, raw, and romantic in a way that only the 80s dared to be. But when it hit theaters in 1984, audiences didn't know what to make of it. It flopped hard. The critics were split, and the box office was unforgiving. And yet, here we are, in 2025, and Streets of Fire still burns. Why? Because it captured something timeless, a dream world where music saves souls, love never truly dies, and heroes walk through flames in slow motion. The production design feels like a living album cover. The performances are iconic. And that soundtrack? Still pure fire. Modern filmmakers cite it as a visual influence. Cult fans celebrate it at midnight screenings. And younger generations discovering it for the first time are stunned that something this bold was ever forgotten. Streets of Fire wasn't just ahead of its time, it was out of time. And that's exactly why it still holds up. 5. Miracle Mile, 1988. The call that changed everything. It was just another night in Los Angeles. Harry had just met Julie, a whirlwind romance born in the jazz-blurred chaos of a museum date. They laughed, they danced, and they made plans to meet again under the neon-lit sky of Miracle Mile. She promised to wait at the diner until sunrise. But fate doesn't wait. Harry's alarm didn't go off. By the time he rushed out the door, hours had passed. He made it to the diner, breathless and guilty, only to find Julie long gone. As he searched for a payphone to leave a message, the phone rang. On instinct, he picked it up. The voice on the other end was panicked, scrambled, a soldier in a missile silo, screaming that nuclear war was minutes away. The line went dead. what if it was real? What started as a quiet night turned into a frantic race through LA's underbelly. Harry ran from disbelief to desperation, trying to find Julie, to escape the city, to survive what might be the end of the world. In a city full of noise, neon, and indifference, Harry and Julie were suddenly the only thing that mattered to each other. Their love, brand new and raw, now faced an impossible test. Could they outrun fate? Could they find each other before the countdown ended? As the final minutes ticked away, it wasn't just about survival, it was about finding meaning, connection, and one last chance at hope. Why Miracle Mile still hits hard in 2025. In a world constantly on edge, with alerts, warnings, and existential threats always one headline away, Miracle Mile reminds us how fragile and precious our time really is. It's not just a thriller. It's a love story, an existential panic, and a haunting echo of what-ifs. And in 2025, its urgency feels more real than ever. 6. My Bodyguard, 1980. A story still worth telling in 2025. In the shadow of towering Chicago buildings and echoing high school hallways, a quiet boy named Clifford Peach walked the fine line between being invisible and being a target. New to the school, polite, and a little too well-dressed thanks to his hotel manager father, Clifford was an instant magnet for the school bully, the kind of kid who ruled through fear and extortion. But this isn't just a story about bullying. It's a story about courage, friendship, and the unexpected power of standing up, not just for yourself, but for someone else. Enter Ricky Linderman. Silent. Brooding. Rumored to be dangerous. The kind of kid others avoided, out of fear or misunderstanding. But Clifford, in a desperate move, asked him to be his bodyguard, a personal shield against the torment. What he got instead was something far more rare, a real friend. As the walls between them broke down, Clifford discovered Ricky's past, the tragedy that silenced him, the pain that hardened him. And Ricky, in turn, found someone who didn't judge him, someone who saw beyond the myths. My Bodyguard isn't flashy. It doesn't come wrapped in 1980s neon or drenched in synth. But it's raw. Honest. Gentle. And in a world still reckoning with bullying, mental health, and misunderstood youth, it feels more relevant than ever in 2025. It's a forgotten film, yes, but one that still punches with heart, tenderness, and quiet strength. If you've never seen it, or only dimly remember it, My Bodyguard is the kind of movie that quietly stays with you, long after the credits roll. 7. Near Dark, 1987. The vampire western that time almost forgot. In the dusty heart of the American Southwest, long before sparkly vampires and bloodless scares, there was Near Dark, a film too wild for mainstream horror and too poetic for the action crowd. Caleb Colton was just a small-town cowboy with a pickup and a crush, until one night changed everything. One kiss under a desert moon, and suddenly he's pulled into a nomadic clan of night-walking predators, a family of outlaws who burn in sunlight, feed without remorse, and ride the highways with bloodlust in their veins. But Near Dark wasn't your typical vampire flick. Directed by Kathryn Bigelow before she made Oscar history, the film blends gothic horror with western grit. It's not about capes and castles, it's about loneliness, addiction, and what it means to lose your soul, and maybe fight to get it back. In 2025, Near Dark still hits hard. Its gritty atmosphere, moody synth score, and stunning performances, especially from Bill Paxton as the manic, terrifying Severin, make it feel more modern than many recent horror attempts. It's brutal but beautiful. Violent but strangely tender. And it never explains the V-word once, making the horror feel more real, more raw. Near Dark didn't get the love it deserved back in 1987. It was overshadowed by The Lost Boys, flashier, louder, and more commercial. But decades later, it has outlasted many of its peers. Because some stories don't need sunlight to shine. They just need time, and a little blood in the dust. 8. Time Bandits, 1981. The kid who traveled through time and never really came back. Once upon a time, long before smartphones, streaming, and cinematic universes, a lonely boy named Kevin opened his bedroom closet and discovered a hole in time. Not a metaphor. Not a dream. A literal rip in the spacetime continuum, right behind the laundry hamper. And through that tear tumbled a gang of mischievous dwarves, armed with a stolen map that charted every time hole in the universe, keys to every war, wonder, and wild moment in human history. From Napoleon's battlefield to Robin Hood's forest, from the Titanic to a confrontation with evil itself, Kevin was pulled through a whirlwind of eras. He witnessed glory and greed, absurdity and awe, all while trying to get back home, or figure out if home was ever worth returning to. Directed by the legendary Terry Gilliam, Time Bandits is a visually bizarre, darkly funny, and oddly profound fantasy that refuses to age, because, like its characters, it refuses to stay in one time. In 2025, it still holds up. Why? Because its imagination is boundless. Because it doesn't pander to kids, it dares them to think. And because at its heart, it reminds us, sometimes the biggest adventures begin in the smallest places, like a child's bedroom at night. 9. Pump Up the Volume, 1990, made in the late 80s. Pump Up the Volume, a voice that never died. In the quiet corners of a sleepy suburb in 1989, where rows of beige houses masked buried anxiety and bored hearts, a lonely teenager named Manhunter discovered the only thing that made him feel alive: his voice. By day, Mark was invisible, a stuttering, socially awkward transfer student. But by night, behind a mic in his bedroom-turned studio, he became Hard Harry, a pirate radio DJ with a voice that cut through the static of conformity. "Talk hard," he whispered into the microphone, unleashing raw, honest rants that spoke to every misunderstood teen in town. Depression. Sex. Injustice. The lies the school told. The emptiness parents didn't see. He was foul-mouthed, fearless, and absolutely what they needed. His words were messy but true. And in 2025, decades later, that truth still echoes. Because Hard Harry wasn't just a radio rebel. He was a mirror for the silenced, the awkward kids, the broken homes, the ones who didn't know how to scream. His message? You're not alone. Your voice matters. In a world now filled with podcasts, live streams, and digital chaos, Pump Up the Volume still feels electric. It reminds us what it means to speak truth in the noise, and to listen with heart when someone dares to. And somewhere, in a dusty corner of the internet, his final broadcast still plays. Feeling screwed up at a screwed up time in a screwed up place does not mean you are screwed up. Talk hard. 10. Something Wicked This Way Comes, 1983. The autumn carnival that time forgot. In the quiet chill of an October evening in 2025, Alex scrolled aimlessly through a streaming platform, tired of algorithm-fed noise. He wanted something older. Something real. That's when he stumbled across a forgotten title buried deep in the Retro Picks tab. Something Wicked This Way Comes, 1983. The title alone gave him chills. He clicked play. The screen flickered to life with eerie music and images of swirling leaves, shadowy trains, and carnival tents rising like dark magic. He was instantly transported to Green Town, a sleepy American town kissed by autumn, and haunted by a traveling carnival that promised dreams but sold nightmares. As the story unfolded, Alex followed two boys, Will and Jim, whose curiosity led them to witness the arrival of the sinister Mr. Dark and his pandemonium carnival. With every spinning carousel and haunted mirror, he felt the pull of childhood wonder clashing with adult fear. But it wasn't just a spooky tale. The movie whispered deeper truths, about aging, regret, temptation, and the fleeting magic of youth. It told him that time, like Mr. Dark's carousel, could move forward or backward, but never pause. And that courage doesn't roar, sometimes it simply means holding your father's hand in the dark. When the film ended, Alex sat in silence. Something had stirred, a long-buried memory of autumn nights, of reading Ray Bradbury by flashlight, of feeling like stories could be real if you just believed hard enough. In 2025, amid digital clutter and shallow reboots, this forgotten film still held power, not just as a movie, but as a reminder. Sometimes, the scariest magic is the kind that shows you who you really are, and who you might still become. 11. The Hidden, 1987. The sci-fi thriller you forgot, but shouldn't have. Los Angeles, 1987. A man in a suit walks calmly into a bank, then suddenly opens fire. No motive. No prior record. When police chase him down, he takes dozens of bullets and keeps going, until he dies. But that's just the beginning. FBI agent Lloyd Gallagher arrives in town with a strange intensity. He's not your average investigator, and soon, it's clear he's not even from this world. Gallagher teams up with skeptical detective Tom Beck, and together, they follow a trail of inexplicable crimes. Perfectly normal people, husbands, grandmothers, sales clerks, turning into unstoppable, murderous maniacs overnight. Why? Because something is inside them. An alien parasite has crash-landed on Earth, and it doesn't want peace. It craves violence, luxury cars, loud music, and chaos. It moves from host to host, leaving destruction in its wake. Gallagher isn't just chasing a killer, he's chasing the creature that destroyed his own planet. As the parasite jumps into a stripper, then a politician, and finally aims for the presidency itself, Gallagher and Beck must stop it, no matter the cost. Why it still holds up in 2025. The Hidden is a sci-fi/action/horror mashup that was way ahead of its time. With gritty practical effects, a fast pace, dry humor, and a surprisingly emotional core, it blends Terminator-level thrills with Invasion of the Body Snatchers-style paranoia. Its themes of identity, justice, and corruption still resonate in 2025. Plus, the buddy cop chemistry between Kyle MacLachlan and Michael Nouri? Totally underrated. If you missed The Hidden back then, now's your time to find it. 12. Repo Man, 1984. The punk sci-fi that predicted everything. In the neon-tinted streets of 1980s Los Angeles, long before AI, influencer culture, or cryptocurrency ever hit the mainstream, a strange little movie called Repo Man quietly exploded onto the screen, loud, chaotic, and years ahead of its time. The year is 2025, and Otto, a disillusioned young punk with a bad haircut and a worse attitude, still speaks to us. Not because he's heroic or admirable, but because he's real. In a world of empty consumerism, corporate plastic, and authority gone rogue, Repo Man didn't just rebel, it disassembled the system and laughed at the pieces. What begins as a story about a burnout punk getting recruited to repossess cars morphs into a wild, paranoid ride involving a radioactive Chevy Malibu, government agents, UFO conspiracies, televangelists, and lobotomized corpses. But somewhere in that chaos is a warning, and a wink. Back in 1984, Repo Man was dismissed by many as too weird, too noisy, too punk. But in 2025, it feels prophetic. Its anti-establishment attitude, ironic humor, and lo-fi aesthetic mirror the feelings of a generation raised on dystopias and digital disillusionment. Even its visual gags, generic food labels like beer and food, now echo a society drowning in algorithmic sameness. It's a film that predicted brand detachment before memes made it mainstream. And in the end, that glowing Chevy Malibu flying off into space? It's not just a finale. It's a symbol of escape, of enlightenment, or maybe just one last middle finger to the rules. Why it still holds up in 2025. Attitude, raw, rebellious, unapologetically punk. Themes, government overreach, identity crisis, alienation, timeless. Weirdness, in a world where reality feels stranger than fiction, its absurdity rings true. Vibes, cosmic nihilism wrapped in a cult classic shell. 13. Runaway, 1984. In a world where machines were supposed to make life easier, they started turning deadly. Los Angeles, the near future. Sergeant Jack Ramsey isn't your average cop, he's a specialist in runaways, malfunctioning robots that go rogue. In a society where robotics power everyday life, his job isn't glamorous, until now. When a seemingly routine call ends in tragedy, Ramsey and his new partner, Officer Karen Thompson, uncover something chilling. These aren't just glitches. These are targeted kills, weaponized robots programmed to murder. The trail leads to a brilliant but twisted tech mogul, Dr. Charles Luther, played with icy menace by Gene Simmons of KISS, who's created smart bullets, assassin bots, and a vision of chaos no firewall can stop. As Ramsey races against time, the line between man and machine blurs. Can he outwit an artificial killer before it wipes out the city, and the people he loves? Why it still holds up in 2025. Despite its cheesy 80s effects, Runaway feels eerily ahead of its time. It warned us about smart homes, drone warfare, and AI gone wrong decades before they became real. With Michael Crichton, creator of Jurassic Park, at the helm, the film blends crime thriller tension with sci-fi foresight, making it not just a relic, but a relevant warning. It's campy, it's cool, and in today's world of smart devices and digital danger, Runaway feels less like fiction and more like prophecy. 14. Ladyhawke, 1985. The Curse Beneath the Moon, a Ladyhawke tale. In a realm where daylight and moonlight carved destinies in silence, a tragic enchantment ruled two star-crossed lovers, Etienne Navarre, a noble knight, and Isabeau d'Anjou, a radiant woman of rare spirit. Cursed by a jealous bishop, they were doomed never to touch, she, a falcon by day, he, a wolf by night. By sunlight, Navarre wandered the shadows. By moonlight, Isabeau soared beyond his reach. Always close. Never together. But fate stirred one cold evening when a clever young thief named Philippe Mouse-Gaston escaped the dungeons of Aquila. His path soon tangled with Navarre's, and then with the impossible truth of the curse. What followed was a journey laced with sword fights, mysticism, and unwavering devotion. As the trio traveled under skies lit by stars and sorrow, Philippe became the bridge between what was and what could be. He witnessed love so strong it defied logic, and loyalty so fierce it echoed through time. And then, it happened. A fleeting eclipse. A moment of twilight, neither day nor night. In that breathless window, both lovers stood as humans. Flesh to flesh. Eye to eye. For the first time in years, they embraced. The curse shattered like glass. Love triumphed, not through might, but by enduring every sunrise and sunset fate through their way. Why it still holds up in 2025. Ladyhawke remains timeless in 2025 not just for its sweeping fantasy, poetic storytelling, and breathtaking landscapes, but for its central message, that love, real love, endures through the darkest nights and brightest days. It's more than a fantasy film. It's a visual poem. A tale of broken time mended by hope. And in an age of overblown CGI, Ladyhawke reminds us that sometimes, less is magic. 15. The Monster Squad, 1987. When monsters were real, and kids saved the world. Long before superhero teams and cinematic universes dominated the screen, a group of scrappy kids in a small American town formed their own legendary alliance. They weren't just comic book fans or dreamers, they were the Monster Squad, and in 1987, they saved the world, even if nobody noticed at the time. It started on an ordinary day, with school bullies, monster movie marathons, and secret club meetings in a kid's treehouse. But something ancient was stirring. Dracula had returned, alongside Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and Gilman. Not just in the movies, but for real. Their goal? Unleash evil upon the world using an ancient amulet and a gateway to darkness. The only thing standing in their way? A bunch of misfit kids who knew their monsters better than anyone. Armed with silver bullets, garlic pizza, and a lot of heart, the Monster Squad took on the undead, proved that Wolfman's got nards, and reminded the world that friendship and courage could defeat the darkest evil. Though ignored during its initial release, the Monster Squad refused to die. Over time, it grew into a cult classic, passed from one generation of monster lovers to the next. Now in 2025, it's clearer than ever. This isn't just a forgotten 80s flick, it's a timeless adventure that still howls with charm, wit, and monster movie magic. And there you have it, some of the most forgotten gems of the 1980s that still pack a punch in 2025. Whether it was a creepy creature feature, a wild sci-fi ride, or an underrated coming-of-age classic, these movies prove that great stories never go out of style. Did we dig up one of your old favorites, or introduce you to something new? Let us know in the comments which movie hit you with the most nostalgia, or if there's another hidden 80s gem we should have included. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss another trip through cinema history with Globewise Entertainment. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep the retro vibes alive.